Okay, good morning and welcome to the University of South Carolina's Town Hall meeting. We invited you all here today to introduce you to our new solicitation system that went live Monday, March 1st. We're so excited that you could all join us, and we so appreciate that you're taking a time out of your very busy schedules to join us this morning. My name is Joanne Callahan, and I'm presenting today on behalf of the Purchasing Department. I would like to let everyone know that this is being recorded and it will be made available on the purchasing website, and we'll show you where all that is at the end of the session. And that we are going to be using the chat box to ask questions, and all the questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. And I have our fabulous purchasing team online here today, and they will be answering your questions when the presentation is completed. All right, let's get started. Today's agenda, we're going to talk about what is the new solicitation system, what does that mean for the offeror and suppliers. We're going to take a look at our new supplier portal. We're going to look at solicitation opportunities within that portal. We're going to talk a little bit about what the difference is between an offeror and a supplier. You'll hear me using those throughout this presentation. How a supplier can request a user ID, and how an offeror can register, and then how to sign in to respond to a solicitation. We're going to talk a little bit about notifications and meeting your training needs, and then next steps. So what is strategic sourcing? The University of South Carolina implemented a new online bidding system. And this new web-based software system is used by the Purchasing Department to create online solicitation events, accept electronic bids and proposals, and issue notices of award for procurement contracts resulting from solicitations. What does this mean for the offeror or supplier? This new solicitation system will provide you public access to an online listing of UofSC goods and services and construction solicitations, an electronic offer registration for new potential suppliers, and electronic creation and submission of responses to solicitation events by offerors and existing UofSC suppliers. The new system replaced our legacy method of posting solicitations on the Purchasing Department's webpage and then accepting of bids and proposals only by postal, mail, email, or fax. And what's so great about this system is that it's going to provide the ability to submit offers directly online, creating a much more efficient relationship between the buyer and you, the offeror or supplier. I want to take some time to give you a quick look at the purchasing website, where you can find information about this new solicitation system. And if you go to our main purchasing homepage at purchasing.sc.edu, you will see the solicitation and awards link in the left navigation menu. Here you will see an introduction to our new system. And let me just take you there right now. So here you go. So we're on our purchasing website. Here is the solicitations and awards link here on the left-hand side. You click that, and it's going to bring you to the solicitations and awards page. So here you're going to see an introduction to the new system. You're going to see the URL for the supplier portal, which is highlighted here in burgundy. And offers and suppliers will use this URL, a public access link, to go directly to the supplier homepage. And this is where our suppliers will be maintained going forward. So now, instead of going to the purchasing website to look for solicitation opportunities, you will use the URL on the purchasing website that I just showed you, supplier.ps.sc.edu, to enter the new UofSC solicitation system, where you can view solicitation opportunities. The public access point for all new procurement activity, solicitations, and awards after March 15 will be posted and maintained within the university's supplier portal. On the supplier homepage, which you see right here, you can view more information about supplier and offeror registration, including frequently asked questions and answers. And we call these individual boxes tiles. So you'll see that there's a training tile, a welcome tile, announcements, solicitation opportunities, notice of intent to award, user registration, and a sign-in tile. So you'll hear me refer to those as tiles throughout this presentation. The first tile that we're going to take a look at is the Solicitation Opportunities tile. And here is where you're going to be able to view bidding opportunities. To do that, you're going to click the Solicitation Opportunities tile to see out all of the solicitations that are available. Only goods and services and construction solicitations will be available. And if you are only interested in goods and services, for example, there is a way to filter the list to only view goods and services opportunities. To do this, you'll click the icon up here at the corner. It looks like an oil filter, and you can filter by classification right here to view by a specific event type. And this will allow you to focus on the event types that are most relevant to the work that you do. To see details for a specific solicitation, let's say, for example, you are scrolling through all of the solicitation opportunities and you see something that catches your eye. Here we have the Globe Theater RFP. You're like, ooh, let's take a look at that. That might be something I'm interested in responding to. So you would actually click on the event line that I have highlighted here in red. And on the event details page, which is right here, you'll be able to view additional details. For example, you can see who the buyer is. You can get some, there's a description listed there. You'll also have access to view the solicitation package. You just kind of click that blue link and it will pop up there for you. And then you can view the event lines as well. Now let's take a look at this new solicitation system. So I'm going to go into a testing environment. Here we go. So just a reminder that this is a testing environment. So the solicitation opportunities that you see here will be different or are different than the current opportunities that are available in our live system. So this is just things that we've put together through our testing and practice in preparation for our March 1st go live. So to access that this public portal, you would actually go to the purchasing website, click that link, supplier.ps.sc.edu, and it will bring you to the supplier homepage. On the supplier homepage, you have access to all of these tiles, training and FAQs. That's where you're going to see some frequently asked questions, and there's some answers there provided. And we'll talk about the user registration in a little bit and the sign-in tile. And but right now we're going to look at the solicitation opportunities tile. So let's say you're out there and you're taking a look. Let's go look at the purchasing solicitation opportunities. You're no longer going to use the legacy. You're no longer going to go out there to the purchasing website to look for that listing of solicitations. You actually have to click that link, come into the supplier homepage, and then you're going to click the solicitation opportunities tile. Okay, just give me a second, guys. I'm not sure why that happened. We were good to go. Let me just stop sharing for a minute and get this situation taken care of, and we'll get going again. As much as you practice and you go through things, sometimes technology has its own personality. So we'll take care of that.
And while Joanne is handling that, I just wanted to remind everyone that when Joanne was on the supplier homepage, she was basically there as a guest, and you'll see on the welcome tile in the very middle of the screen that it says welcome guest. So that indicates that this could be for any public user that just happens to come across our supplier homepage, that they can view these things, because as a state entity, all of our solicitations are public access, and so you can see them and until you become a registered offeror. At that point, you'd be able to actually participate in those solicitations.
Thanks, Mac. All right, I think we're up and running. So as Mac said, this is a public portal, and this is anybody has access to this page to view the solicitation opportunities. So we're going to click the tile, and it's going to bring us to a page where all of the solicitation opportunities are listed. And as I said earlier, if you are only interested in goods and services, for example, you would click this icon here that looks like an oil filter. You would click this button, this lookup classification button, and you would select maybe goods and services here. Just give a note. We are in a testing environment, and so information technology will not be available in the live environment. So we're going to click goods and services, and we're going to click done. And now we have only goods and services events available. So you're going to go down through all of these, and you're going to look at them. You may even open up every event line just to look at the additional details, read the description, look at the solicitation package. But I'm specifically interested in this Globe Theater RFP. So I would click here, and as you can see, we have more information. We have the buyer name, we have a description, we have the event start and end date, and we have the solicitation package. So I would click on the solicitation package, and that would pop up, and you can read through all of the detail there. And then you also have the event line as well. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. All right, so let's say that you were in the public portal, and you were viewing all of the public opportunities that are available, and you saw an event that you were really interested in responding to. Let's talk about what next steps are. So you've heard me reference Offeror and Supplier already throughout this presentation, so I just want to take some time to talk about what the difference is between both of those, what the difference is between an offeror and a supplier. So an offeror is somebody who is not currently a UofSC supplier. And if you are not a UofSC supplier, that means that you will have, in order to respond to a solicitation, you will have to register as an offeror, to receive a user ID, and to create a password. And then you will use that user ID and password to enter what we're calling a secure supplier portal, which will bring you to a page dedicated to you specifically. So that will take you from the public portal to a secure supplier portal, which is a page just for you. And then if you are awarded solicitation, then you will become a UofSC supplier. If you are currently a UofSC supplier, which I'm sure many of you listening here today are, then in order to, before you can respond to a solicitation, you will need to request a user ID, to receive a user ID and create a password if you haven't done so already. So if you already are doing business with the university, then you may be familiar with our supplier onboarding system, and you may have already gone into the system to do that. Then you would use that user ID and password to enter the secure supplier portal to respond to a solicitation. So there are a couple of differences here, but most importantly, both an offeror and supplier can get the information they need to respond to a bid. All right, so if you are a current UofSC supplier, then you will actually go into the public supplier portal, and you would click the user registration link tile. You will, from here, you will click the user ID request for domestic or international. So you have to be very careful. If you are a domestic supplier, you'll click the domestic option. And if you are an international supplier, you will click the international option. From there, you will actually complete requesting a user ID, a register new user accounts form. And on this form, before you get started, it's very important for you guys to to have your supplier ID on hand. And that is, remember, this is for those of you who are currently UofSC suppliers. And so you would have a supplier ID, and then you would also need to know your tax identification number. Now, if you can't remember your supplier ID, no worries. You can reach out to the purchasing department by emailing them at purchasing@sc.edu, and they will be more than happy to help you with that issue, and they'll provide that supplier ID for you. So then you can come back into the system. You can enter your supplier ID in that field, enter your UofSC tax identification number, and then you would go down to the bottom. And as soon as, if your numbers are correct, so if you're entering that information and there is an error, it will let you know. It's very user friendly, but as soon as you enter that information and the system identifies that it's correct, it's automatically going to populate a user ID in this gray field right here. And then you'll have to enter a password, and I would suggest that you enter a password that you're very familiar with and that you will remember. And then from there, you will confirm and complete the registration. So let's go into our system and let's go through that process. So here in our public portal, you're going to click the user registration tile. And remember, I said that you need to be very careful. If you're a domestic supplier, you would click register now here for domestic. And then if you were an international, you would click either one of these options here. So today I'm just going to walk through a domestic example. So I'm going to click register now. And I know my supplier ID, so I'm going to enter that. And I also know, my and it doesn't like my supplier ID. Oh goodness, just one second.
And while we're on the user ID request, and since we have a password field below, if you click on the question mark next to the information, it'll tell you that your password needs to be a combination of uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters, and you're required to put at least one of each in there. That's kind of the new standard convention for passwords these days in this password-centric environment that the global internet is. So just remember that you can't just use your birth month or something. You have to have a combination of a question mark or a pound sign and an upper and lowercase letter and a digit.
Okay. I promise you guys, I did practice this last night and it did work. 1, 2. Can you guys see that the zeros are not even popping in there? Okay, so let's just walk through what we would have to do. I apologize, guys. So we would enter our supplier ID, and this is a really good example. If the supplier ID that you're entering is not correct, it is going to turn red. Then you would enter your tax identification number right here. As soon as you do that, if the information is correct, a UofSC a user ID will populate right here. It will begin with a SCS, and then it will have some numbers after that. You'll enter your password. You'll enter your password to confirm it. You will enter your first and last name and then an email address. You'll enter an email address because the UofSC, the user ID, will be emailed to you. So if you forget to make note of it here and you've forgotten it, no worries. You enter your email address here and that will get emailed to you directly. Your password will not be emailed to you, so it's very important that you enter something that you're going to remember. All right, then once you get finished, you would select this box here to accept the terms and agreement, and then you would click submit, and it would say that your user ID has been request has been accepted, and an email will be sent to you with that user ID in that email, as well as some steps for going forward. Okay. Thanks for your patience, Guy.
Joanne, I've learned that your supplier ID is inactive in our testing environment. So that could happen in real life too. So it's kind of one of those things, if you get a red symbol or a red box, It may be because our supplier team has inactivated your record for some reason, and we can research that and get back to you why that might be the case. Many times an inactive supplier is a result of an acquisition from one company to another, or a new tax identification number has been issued, and so they will inactivate the old supplier ID and create a new one. So hopefully that's not the case in any of our audience. But just remember, if you know that your supplier ID is accurate because someone gave it to you, it's possible that your supplier record might have an issue and they might have created a new supplier ID for you.
Thanks, Matt. That's a really good example. I appreciate that. All right, so let's go back to our presentation. So that's what current suppliers would need to do. They need to go out there and request a user ID. But now, what if you've never done business with a university, and you've entered the supplier portal, you've reviewed the solicitation opportunities, and you see a solicitation you're interested in and you want to respond to? What do? Well, you're going to register as an offeror. And you're going to do this because this will provide you with a user ID and password needed to sign in to your dedicated supplier page. And so you would click the user registration tile and select register as an offeror. So you would select the registration tile right here, register as an offeror, and click that register now button. And then when you get in there, you're going to see this page. And so So here you're going to be welcomed with the first step. It's going to give you some information, and you can see that there are 6 steps here, 6 train stops. And the first stop is welcome. And here you would select, identify whether or not you are a business or an individual. And from there, you would move on to identifying information. And that's where you're going to give us your company name, your tax information, some government classifications if applicable, and then any additional reporting elements that are applicable to your business. From there, you would enter your address, your business address, such as a primary address or an order address if you're purchasing or purchase orders need to go to a different address. From there, you would enter a contact, and that's where you would actually create your own password, and then you will actually see a user ID there as well. And then finally, you would select some categorizations, and we'll talk about why that's so important when we go back into the system. And then you would submit all of this information. And from there, as just like on the user request form, the user ID will be emailed to you, but your password that you created will not. So it's very important that you remember that password. Okay, so let's go into our live demonstration, and I promise you this will work. Thank you guys for being so patient and hanging in there. So we're going to select the user registration tile here, and we're registering as an offer because we have not done any business with the university as of yet. And we see a solicitation out there that we're really interested in, that we would like to respond to. But before we do that, we need to receive a user ID and password. And to do that, we're going to register. So as I said, the registration process has 6 train stops or steps. And the first step greets you with a welcome and asks you to identify the type of entity you represent, business or individual. So for this example, I'm going to select business, and I'm going to click next. So next we have to enter a tax identification number. So I'm going to do that. Then we're going to enter a business name. So my business name is Global Festivals, LLC. And even though it says name here, we're really asking for your company name. If you are an individual supplier, then you would put your individual name here. Here you would select government classification if applicable, and you would click the lookup button here, and it would give you the options that you can select, and then you would complete the rest of the information. Scrolling down, additional reporting elements, you can select anything that's applicable to your business. I'm going to select Caucasian, and that I'm a woman-owned business, and then I'm going to select next to move on to addresses. So here I'm going to enter my street address, and I'm going to enter my zip code. And then from there, it actually populates your city, your county, and your state. So that's very, very handy. You don't have to type in everything. And then I'm going to add my email address. And down here, as I said, you can add an order address if your purchase orders need to be sent to a different address than your primary that you've listed up here. Okay, with that, I'm going to move on, and now it's time to add a contact. So I'm going to click Add a Contact button. I'm going to enter my name. I'm going to enter my email address. I'm going to enter a phone number. And make sure that I select a contact type. And for this, I'm going to select general. I also need to check that this is my primary contact. And now we're going to move down to creating a password. So sometimes, different websites have specific things that need to be included in a password. So if you want to know what what needs to be included here for our website, this information is listed here: 1 uppercase, 1 lowercase, 1 number, and 1 special character. So I'm going to enter my password. And if your confirmation, if you don't enter it correctly, it will let you know. And I'm going to click OK. So it looks like I entered that correctly. Now you have a user ID. So you can make note of that, put that somewhere safe and somewhere where you remember, as well as the password that you just entered. But no worries if you forget to make note of this user ID right here. As I said earlier, it will be emailed to you. All right, so now we're ready to move on. So now we're here at categorizations. And so this is really important because what you need to do right here is you need to select categories that best describe the products and services that you provide. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to select some categories that best describe the business that I can offer the university. So I'm going to keep scrolling down. I have some numbers written here. So and what's really nice is that as you select the categories, they pop up over here on the right side so that you know what you've selected. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to select one more. Okay. Here we go. All right. I only selected a couple here, but you can select as many as many as are applicable to the business you do. Okay. So now I'm going to, and why these are so important is that, if the purchasing department buyer has a solicitation that they need to put out to the public, they can select specific categories when creating the event. And as long as you have a valid email in our system, you'll be notified of the solicitation opportunity for any of the categories you selected. So I think that's pretty exciting, and I know the purchasing team was pretty excited about that as well. So we're going to click Next. Now we've come to the end of our registration process, and it's a pretty quick process. It'll probably take you about less than 10 minutes for sure. So just make sure that you have the right email address in here to make sure that that's where you want to receive all of this information. You can review the information by clicking the review button. Just to quickly scroll down through your registration information to make sure that everything is accurate. You can click these edit pencils here if you need to go back to that specific train stop or step to make any changes. Maybe something was incorrect. That will allow you to do that from here. So scroll down through all the information, make sure that is accurate, and then you can return to the submit page. So I feel good about everything that's been entered. I'm going to select to accept the terms and conditions, and then I'm going to submit. And there we go. It says I have successfully submitted my registration. So now, as an offerer, you now have the information you need to be able to respond to any solicitation that you're interested in, because now you have a user ID that you made note of. If you didn't, no worries. Like I said, you'll receive an email and you have a password that you can use. Okay. I'm going to go back to the supplier page and then we can go back to the presentation. Okay. So now that you have, you've gone out there to our public portal, you've reviewed all of the solicitation opportunities, you found a couple of things that you're interested in, you are a current supplier and you've registered for a UofSC a user ID and a password, and then as an offerer, you just went through the registration process to do the same. So now you have what you need to enter what we're calling our private portal, or a portal that is a portal page that is dedicated specifically to you. And so that's what you're going to. So what you would do is you would submit your bid. To submit bids and proposals in response to any posted solicitation, you are required to sign in. And to sign in, you will need to use that user ID that begins with SCS right here, and then you would enter your password. And how will you know if you're signed in? Well, as Max said earlier, now your name is in the welcome box. So you will know that you are no longer in the public portal homepage. Now you are in your page, a page dedicated specific to you. And this is where you're going to actually begin the process of responding to a solicitation. So once in the portal, and once on your dedicated page, you would click the solicitation opportunities button or tile. And from there, it will bring you into the listing of all the solicitations. And earlier I talked about how you can use the oil filter to filter through those solicitations that you want. You can do it by classification or method. And then you would click a specific event line to go to the solicitation details page. Back here, let's talk about this. These are the public events page. So when you actually click the tile, it defaults to the public events. And those are events for which you did not receive a direct invitation, but are publicly available for responses. But you can also click the invited events tab, and that is going to bring you to a list of events that you received an event email notice, you accepted or created an offer for. And as I said, to respond to an event or to begin that process, you would actually click an event line, which is highlighted here in yellow. And then once you get to that page, so just before we actually move into, how to respond to an event, that we want to talk about this left navigation here a little bit. It's just kind of a way for you to organize your events. And just like you would in your Outlook, you would organize your emails, you would have specific rules set up so that certain emails would pop into certain folders. And this is kind of that same idea. So all public events that are active, including both public and invited events. So here on this page, you can see that the example is showing that there are 30 rows, and that's 30 public events. And if you click the invited events, there would be 3 in there with a total of 33. New events, these are events that you have taken no action on. And then the accepted would be if you accepted an event invitation, and those events will be grouped here, and you'll be notified of new event activity. Declined, if you decline an invitation, because, as I said earlier, if you've made those category selections, when a solicitation is made public, then you may receive an email asking to respond to this event because it matches up with the categories that you selected on your through the registration process. And then if you if you submit a bid and withdraw before the deadline, it will be viewable here. Also very important over here, the start date and end date column. That's going to let you know, what's active and available. And then ends in, that's the number of days that you have left before a solicitation ends or closes. So now, you're in there, you've just decided that there is a specific event that you would like to respond to. And so what are your next steps? Well, you click the event line and it brings you to the solicitation details page. And from here, you can review the solicitation detail information. It's going to give you the buyer name. It's going to give you the classification. It's going to give you a description of the event. It's going to give you access to view the solicitation package. And it's going to give you the event lines. This event only has one listed, but events may have more than one line available. So once you get into this page, you're going to view the solicitation package. And if it's something that you want to respond to, you're going to print that solicitation document. You're going to complete your response. You're going to make sure you sign that document, and you're going to scan the completed package and save that to your computer as a PDF. And then from there, you're ready to click the Create Offer button. Once on this page, you need to scroll down to step 1, answer solicitation questions. And this is where you're going to attach the solicitation document that you completed, signed, and upload it to your computer as a PDF. You're going to click that Enter File Attachment Response, and you're going to follow the steps to attach that document to this response. Then you're going to move down to step 2, and you're going to enter your line responses. So you're going to go down and you're going to enter an offer price on the line. And then you're going to make sure that you do that for all available lines. For this one, as I said, there's only one, but many solicitations will have more than one. And then you're going to click the Submit Offer button. All right, from there, we're going to go to a live demonstration. So right now, what I need to do is I'm going to need to sign in, because as we said, right now I am on the public portal page, and this is just where you're going to view available solicitation opportunities, or where you're going to request a user ID as a current supplier, or register as an offeror as somebody who has not currently done business with the university. So I have my user ID and password, so I'm ready to sign in. So I'm going to enter that information. And remember, our user ID begins with SCS. Then we're going to enter our password. And there we go. Now I know that I'm in, I'm on my dedicated page because my name is right here. So that is an indication, that's a way for you guys to know, to identify whether you're in the public portal or if you're on your dedicated supplier page. So from here, I'm going to actually click the Solicitation Opportunities tile. And I scroll down. I can filter. So I can go here. I can filter by classification. I'm going to filter by goods and services. I'm going to click Done. And that didn't really make a change here because I believe all of these are goods and services. I can go to invited events and I can see what event I've been specifically invited to. But I'm going to go back to public events because there is a specific event here that grabbed my attention, and it's the Globe Theater RFP. So I'm going to click that event line. That's going to bring me to my details page. I'm going to see that Kristen Moss is the buyer. I'm going to pay attention to my start date and end date and read the description. From here, you're going to click the View Solicitation Package, and you're going to open up the PDF. It's going to open up that solicitation document. Here, you're going to actually print this PDF. You're going to complete the document. You're going to sign it. And then you are going to scan it, and you're going to upload this document as a PDF to your desktop. So we're going to go back. So we're going to close out of here. So I have all of that done. I have my solicitation package complete, signed, ready to go. So now I'm ready to click the Create Offer button. So here we are. We're on the solicitation details page where you can actually submit your offer. So we're going to scroll down and we're going to go down to step 1, answer solicitation questions. And it will just read all the information is here. It will say attach your completed solicitation package here. Attaching the document is required before your offer can be submitted. So I'm going to click enter file attachment response. I'm going to upload. I'm going to browse for that document that I saved to my computer desktop as a PDF. And I'm going to look for my response. It's right here, Global Theater Solicitation. I'm going to select that, click open. I'm going to upload. I'm going to provide a description. There we go. You can add any comments here. The buyer will have access to those, so you can add any additional comments, questions, whatever you need to. So my documents uploaded and I'm ready to go. So I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and I'm going to move on to step 2. And this is where I am going to enter an offer price for the event line. So I need to make sure that I offer and this offer is going to be in your solicitation document as well. Okay, and there we go. So I have my solicitation document attached. I have my offer entered, and I need to click that I reviewed the solicitation document. I'm hoping you did, because that's, you had to review it and respond to it. So we're going to click yes to say that we have reviewed that document, and then we're going to submit the offer. We are ready. And so that solicitation document, that is not a document that's going to be new to you. It's similar to what you do today. The only thing that's different is where you actually upload the document and where you respond. All right, there we go. So it's saying that my offer has been successfully submitted, and I can click home to return to the top, at the top right of the page. And so there we go. All right, so let's go back to our presentation. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. We do have a lot of resources available to you. We have a job aid that will walk through how to register as an offeror. We have a job aid available that walks through how to request a user ID. And then we also have a job aid available that will walk through how to enter a solicitation bid or proposal. And then just a quick one to help you filter through as well. Next steps. So the offer registration is now available. It was available as of March 15th. Well, actually, registration was available March 1st. And so if you are online with us today and you are not a current UofSC supplier and you would like to go through that registration process, please go out there to the purchasing website, click that public portal link, supplier.ps.sc.edu, and go into our supplier homepage to complete that process. And then that will give you your user ID and password, and you'll be ready to respond to any solicitation opportunities that you're interested in. The electronic creation and submission of responses to solicitations by both offerors and existing UofSC suppliers must now be completed in this new solicitation system. So as of March 15th, you must create a submission, create and submit responses in the new system that I just walked through with you today. And there are step-by-step instructions available on the purchasing website as well. And then once again, if you have any questions about this new process, or if you're in the process of creating a registration and you've got the job aid next to you, but you still have some questions, just reach out to purchasing@sc.edu. And there are several people that monitor that email box, and they will be more than happy to help you through that process. All right, so that brings me to the end of my presentation, and thank you guys so much for being so patient with the little glitches we had along the way. And I'm going to go back to Teams, and we're going to see if anybody has any questions. And I can read the questions, and then the purchasing team, they're here to answer the questions that are specific to the solicitations. So the first question is if an offer is submitted prior to the deadline, can the offeror take back the offer, revise it, and resubmit before the solicitation deadline?
So that's a fairly easy question. Yes, if the deadline hasn't been reached, you can go back in and edit your offer. You can also cancel your offer if you just decide you want to cancel it altogether, and then you can resubmit a brand new one. So until that, that deadline is passed and the event closes, you can always access your existing submission, especially in the case of a sealed bid. And then there was an indicator on the event details, and it said sealed bid, and it would say yes or no. So in the terms of the procurement code, we know that without doing the electronic submission process, we would have folks send sealed packages into the purchasing office, and then those would be private and not opened until the deadline of the event. In this case, those events are hidden from the purchasing staff, so they don't even know who has submitted anything. So you have full flexibility to go into your existing offers that you've created during that live period for that event and modify them, or like I said, cancel them and just submit a brand new one.
Okay, thank you. What if there's not a category that fits our services? We do emergency cleaning services remediation.
So the categorizations we have, there's 180, and that sounds like a lot, but you'll know if you're familiar with any of the either NIGP or other organizations' commodity codes that there are thousands and thousands of granular services and supply categories, and that is a kind of a living dynamic list that it can grow as we see the need arises to add more. But if you have a specific market that you're trying to reach and you're not sure which category to choose, reach out to the purchasing staff, and most likely I will provide you with one that will best fit what a solicitation that would be generated for your type of industry would be. So we can assist you there and kind of get you to at least a category that would at least notify you if you were to choose it, because our end users on campus, they only have a specific list of categories that they can select from. So they couldn't choose something that we don't already have in the system. And so just by the nature of them choosing one, that is what would ultimately end up on the event itself. And that would be the trigger for sending out the email of interest for a solicitation that you've selected.
Thank you. So Chuck is asking for the URL for registration. So I typed it in the chat box. It's supplier.ps.sc.edu. And that link is also available on the purchasing website as well.
And obviously the purchasing.sc.edu is the shortcut URL for the purchasing department. And if you don't remember either of those, then go to sc.edu or just search Google for University of South Carolina, not Southern California. You'll be able to get to it. There's a general search bar on the sc.edu webpage. And if you were to type purchasing or supplier portal or anything related to solicitations, you'll probably get some results in our university search engine that would guide you to the right spot. But these are the shortcut URLs that are made to hopefully be easier to remember so that you can, but you might not remember that PS part because that stands for PeopleSoft, which is our financial software.
Yep, thank you. Are there regional campuses included on this site?
So yes, the regional campuses, there are two campuses that have a purchasing authority where they can manage their own solicitation events, and those would be USC Aiken and USC Upstate, and their solicitations will also appear in here. And we're talking everywhere from like a small RFQ all the way up to a huge RFP or invitation for bids. So the Central Columbia campus buyers, as well as those satellite or system campuses, excuse me, I'm going back to the old days. So all those solicitation events will be funneled through this main supplier portal, and you will be able to probably determine which campus is putting out the solicitation event and for where the goods or services will be delivered or rendered.
Okay, thank you. Are there size limitations that apply to PDFs to be uploaded?
I'm gonna see if Mike Staten has an answer for that, because we don't think there is, but we're still testing different scenarios, and we hoped that that will not be a problem. You know, depending on if you need to submit, you know, a file that's 100 megabytes or something like that, there may be some capacity quota, but we will definitely address that if we do run into something that happens with one of your offer attempts.
So Clarissa is asking, Mac, if you could please talk a little bit about proxy bids, especially for construction.
Okay, so that's a good question too. A proxy bid is basically someone from our staff that is not a buyer or anyone related to the issuance of the event itself. They will be receiving those postal mail sealed bids, and they will be responsible for entering those after the deadline is reached. So basically, they would still remain sealed until we reach that point to where we would open and publicly announce, you know, here are all the electronic submissions, here are the vendors that submitted and the prices if it's applicable. And then they would do the same for the sealed bids. And then those staff members would enter those bids on behalf of the suppliers. So, you know, they have the authority to do that as part of their bid clerk assignment.
Okay, thank you. Did you mention that IT category is not on the live solicitation site?
Correct. So in the initial phases of our strategic sourcing project, we were going to separate goods and services and information technology to mirror what used to be the case in the state procurement services division. But a couple years ago, they merged the offices so that buyers are no longer have a specific discipline that they manage. So we're following along in that same kind of concept that IT, goods and services are all kind of merged together in our collective procurement staff. And then the construction bids would be separate because they do have the state engineer's manual that they have to follow. And there's a lot of different guidelines external to just the state procurement code that they're required to follow. So we have a different staff for the facilities only bids and solicitations, and then the rest of the goods and services all fall under the same purview of our central campus staff.
Great, thank you. Does the program stop the offer from submitting until he or she has completed all of the prices information in the solicitation?
Absolutely. So
Yes.
at any point, if you were trying to register or view anything or submit anything, if you haven't completed all the mandatory fields that are required, one of those could be just entering the price on the line item that's in the event, or multiple line items if they're all required. The another example is if you haven't uploaded your attachment that includes your signed cover page and proposal and bid prices and stuff in the terms and conditions and everything. So, you know, you'll definitely get messages at the top, or, you know, you might see a pop-up that says you haven't completed, you know, such and such. Please view the top of the page to see which errors, you know, exist on your submission.
Absolutely. And as demonstrated, I'd like to say on purpose, but as demonstrated on the user ID request form, boxes will turn red, letting you know that something's not right and that it needs to be completed as well. Will additional notifications be sent to vendors about completing registration? How can a vendor determine if they have a user ID and if they are already in the system?
Okay, the first question, additional notifications, you will get essentially 2 emails that acknowledge that you have submitted a registration and that and the second one that indicates that your registration has been approved. And those might come immediately back to back because we do have some automatic approval of user ID registrations for an offer registration. So
Yeah, and Mac, he may be asking about, just prompting them to register as an offer. I don't think there's going to be like any mass email sent out or.
If your question is, will our purchasing staff send out emails to the vendor community? That can be negotiated, I guess, depending on our research and figuring out which suppliers need to be reminded. Obviously, individual buyers that have worked with suppliers in the past may have a record of email addresses that, and we can check to see, does this supplier in our system have a user that is registered? And if not, we would obviously, recommend, hey, we have an invitation for bid that's going live next week, and I'm going to invite you, but I need you to create a user ID so that when it's live, you can respond.
Absolutely. That is the process right now.
The second question is, how can
a vendor determine if they have a user ID and if they are already in the system?
The simple answer is just email purchasing@sc.edu, and we can check the supplier record. If you have ever received a purchase order from our system in the last couple of years, well, actually 5 years is when we went live with our electronic PO system, but you will have a supplier ID printed on the header area of the PO. So it has your supplier ID if you've ever done business in the past with us. So for those that are familiar, if you've ever gotten paid by UofSC recently, you will definitely have a supplier ID in our system, and we can obtain any user ID that exists and the contact person that's actually associated to the user ID. And you can also have multiple users related to a supplier. So just because, Mr. Brown is the salesperson for this specific company, other folks in that same company can register and have a user ID so that when Mr. Brown is on vacation, then Mr. Jones can go in and create the bid offer.
Absolutely. So Bob is asking, can you talk about your vendor diversity program?
I'm actually going to pass the baton to our Director of Purchasing, Clarissa Clark, if she is on and can speak.
I am on. And I think they may be talking.
Oh, we can't hear you very well, Clarissa.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely. Perfect.
Thank you. I think they may be talking about those 2 certifications that we have listed through the state. If you're a certified small woman-owned or minority business and you're certified through SMBCC, we have a place on there where you can put that certification number there. Or if you are certified through DOT, we have that certification there as well. We have a program where we are reaching out as much as possible to all of our small woman-owned and minority businesses because the university wants to make sure that we capture and give opportunities to that set of vendors. So please make sure that you all, if you are one, go and register on our website so that you will be able to get these opportunities when they become available.
Thank you, Clarissa. It looks like all the questions that we have right now. If you guys have any more questions, please take the time to ask. And if we, when we end this presentation and you think of something, as we said, you can email those questions to purchasing@sc.edu, and they'll be able to help answer those questions for you. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we would encourage you, if you have not done business with the university, to go out there and register today. And the recording will be available. There is a recording out there already on the purchasing toolbox. So just go to purchasing.sc.edu, and if you click the purchasing toolbox, the new solicitation system has its own section. Click on that. it'll expand, and down in there, you will find a recording of our first town hall meeting. So, Mac, do you have something to share?
Did you go to that page by chance?
I can go.
I was looking at all the questions while you might have been on that part of the
All
presentation.
right, let me just go out there.
Yeah, that way you'll see that it's separate menu item on the left side of our page, and then
Yeah.
how
So
we
we
have
can go to purchasing.sc.edu. And then we can click the purchasing toolbox. Well, that's the solicitations and awards page. It's going to give you some great information, and that's where that public portal link is, supplier.ps.sc.edu. And then for any of the training resources that we have out there, you're going to go to the purchasing toolbox. You're going to click the expand all for the new solicitation system. And here are all the resources we have so far. We will be working on additional resources, some quick videos and that sort of thing. But right now we have the registering as an offer, quick job aid. You click there and it'll bring you to a job aid that will walk you step by step through that process. And there's one there for requesting a user ID, entering a solicitation, and filtering, as well as the webinar recording from the last town hall, which we'll be most likely be keeping there, and then the supplier town hall slideshow. So all of that information is available to you.
There's one more point that I want to make to especially our vendors. So click on the solicitations and awards menu option.
Mm-hmm.
Because this question didn't come up, but I'm sure it was thought about. The legacy solicitations and awards link on the sub menu of that, or you can go down there as well. So this is where all of the events that were posted and awarded prior to our electronic supplier portal, this is where they all live now. And so these are historical documents that are available for inspection. As a state entity, you're allowed to view old solicitations and awards. And so we have these separated by goods and services. There's a fixed price dedicated section because fixed price bids can live for 5 years on their own and have new contractors awarded during the duration of that contract. And then we have our facilities area, and then obviously we have revenue generating opportunities that are a very small percentage of the bids that we put out for the public to participate in. But this is going to be kept here, and we're not going to take this down. All this information is, at least based on the laws of South Carolina, we'll have to have that there for an extended amount of time. So you can look back and see if there was a similar opportunity that was put out, 2-4 years ago, that you can kind of look back and see what the specification, scope of work, and awardees were like for that information back then.
Thank you, Mac. Okay. Great, Nancy. We're glad that you could join us. And if we don't have any more questions, we wanted to say once again, thank you so much for joining us. Purchasing Department is very excited about this new solicitation system, and we think it's pretty user friendly, and that you'll like the new process for entering a bid. So just remember, the Purchasing Department is always available to help, and if you have any questions, you can email them at purchasing@sc.edu. And we just want to say have a great rest of your day, and thank you again.